Chandler Hyacinth, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education. Good morning to all, and in particular, good morning to our listening public. The Ministry of Education, we want to record our deepest sympathies to persons who have suffered loss during the hurricane storm. Maria, in particular, we have had a few deaths from students among our students. So we want to extend our deepest sympathies to the families of those students who have passed on. In terms of, I will go right along to deal with our education matters. This morning, our reports will come from not only myself, but also from the Chief Education Officer and from the Assistant Chief Education Officer. In terms of education, significant damage was suffered by all our schools, infrastructure across the island. Consequently, the impact of this disaster to the education system is vast. The Ministry of Education anticipates the reopening of schools in the quickest possible time. However, there are certain challenges that would require our immediate attentions. Our main emphasis is to open schools in phases based on the degree and extent of the damage. But there are a number of issues that we have to look at before we can make as we do the assessments and before we can make full announcements. So, for example, we are looking at the road safety in situation. We are looking at the challenge of availability of transportation. We are mindful of the sanitary conditions and health conditions at some of our schools, especially as it relates to the access to running water and the plumbing issues. But we know that in circumstances as this, it's good to begin to engage our students, and we are hoping that we can do so as quickly as possible. As we begin to engage our students, we recognize the psychosocial support that we have to give them, and we are preparing for that. We also know critically that our students are to prepare for CSEC exams, and priority will be given to our secondary schools and our students preparing for CSEC and CCSLC exams. All our third formers are to be writing the CCSLC exams in June, and our CSEC exams starts in May. At this time, we are expected to be doing registration of students. So emphasis will be placed on having the students at school so that we can start the process of registration, and we can start an intense process of preparation for exams and preparation for the SBAs. We want to appeal to students too, as you are at home, since you have your materials, you should not be idle. You should be beginning to prepare for your SBAs, work on your SBAs, prepare to organize your material that you need for examinations. Some of you students out there who have access to the internet, you can get your CSEC curriculums, download those, and use them as a guide to prepare yourselves for exams. We have already announced a timeline that we are looking at to resume schools, and as I said, the opening of schools will be based on a phased approach. We have categorized the damage among our schools into 3 categories. Those with very little damage we can open schools immediately. Those with some minor damage, and then we have those with major damage. And major damage for us includes the entire complete roof has been removed or collapsed ceilings, damage to windows, damage to doors, damage to materials like textbooks and so on, and damage to furniture. In addition to our schools, the Ministry of Education is also responsible for the library services. And we also have significant damage in the library. Our public library is completely collapsed. Presently, we are trying to save what we can save. We were able to save some of our Dominica collection there. But a lot of the other materials we cannot save them because they are all wet and destroyed. Whatever we can save, we are trying to place at the documentation center. We also know too that the documentation center suffered significant damage due to flooding. So these are other areas that we have to look at. Our libraries in Portsmouth, is some of the roof is uncovered. We have some damage at Granby and some damage at Marigot too as well. Some of our schools we have categorized as having minor damage. Those are ones where we have broken windows, smashed doors. At this time we are doing assessment on these, and once we have the expenses together, we are trying to see if we can do a rapid intervention so that these schools can be open. But the schools where we can facilitate instruction, we have some 16 schools. Dubla, Dodan, Wesley, Penville. Then we have Wharton Waven. We have Bellevue Chopin, Newton, Petit Savan, which is they are currently hosted at the Bath Estate, the old Teachers Training College compound, Colibistry, the Caleb John Laura School, the Roseau Primary, the Birian Academy, Concord Primary, Bells Primary. Those are the primary schools we anticipate we will be the first ones that we will have some sort of schooling as immediately as possible. For our secondary schools, there's some damage to some of the schools, but if we are focusing on the 4th and 5th form, there is enough space that we can begin classes with the 4th and 5th form. One of our secondary schools suffered severe damage, that is the Goodwill Secondary School, and we anticipate that we have some shift system with the Dominica Grammar School, or we will be making other arrangement that both schools can go on at the same time on the same compound. Okay. We are, as we said, the main concerns for us as we think of reopening schools in a phased approach is the road network. We would like to see that the road system is properly cleared to avoid students risking their lives while traveling to schools. We need to do a proper assessment of the transportation systems so that we transport students to school. We want to be sure that these students have transport available to get them to schools. They're also concerned about the water situation at our schools. Some of our schools have tanks. Some of the schools, their tanks have been blown away. Some areas, public water from Dawasco is available. Some water is not available. We are still doing assessments. We are still looking at furniture. We want to ensure that the schools have sufficient furniture. And we know that in some of our schools, furniture was destroyed. And as we look at those challenges and we assess the situation, we will reopen school on a phased basis. Based on school by school basis. From time to time, the Ministry of Education will share the briefing with you, the public, so that you can be advised of the situation and how we expect you, the public, to assist us and to work with us. I now hand over to Dr. Blaise, who will give you further details on the situation in our schools.